Excellent. Yeah, it was a great book. I had the opportunity to read it a few years back, and well timed advice. And then for those, Curtis, for those who aren't familiar with your work at IMS Worldwide,
Hmm.
what does IMS Worldwide do, and how does it add value to its clients?
Well, we have pretty much two divisions at IMS. We have the foreign trade zone side, and then we have logistics trend analysis, air cargo development, um, real estate advice for industrial real estate owners and developers. So I'll start with the foreign trade zone. Foreign trade zones are the most sophisticated way to manage the tariff pain that exists today, especially today, but has existed since 1934 when the act was enacted by the Congress. So since 1934, the Foreign Trade Zone program has grown very slowly at first, and then after the manufacturing rule was implemented, it started to really ramp up. So, as a quick uh, view of foreign trade zones, half or more of the Fortune 500 use foreign trade zones, and the other half are trying to get into the foreign trade zone program. So it is quite beneficial for anybody that either imports or makes products here in the United States. Uh, Big names, your largest cell phone manufacturers and sellers are in foreign trade zone. The oil refineries are all in foreign trade zones. The automakers are all in foreign trade zones, whether it's the big three or where it's Mercedes and BMW and Kia and Hyundai. All of those guys are in foreign trade zones. So it's it's not a blue sky kind of discussion that you have with corporations, and especially today, the tariff rate is 10 times what it was in the early 2000s. 10 times higher, the average duty rate. So the average savings in a foreign trade zone are 10 times higher than they were before. And people were doing it quite a long time before Trump number one. And now that Trump number two is in and Biden kept all the tariffs at the same rate, it's a hugely beneficial program. So that's foreign trade zone. Logistics analysis, after 2000, when China was allowed into the WTO, manufacturing started moving across the ocean. And everybody set up factories in China, build it faster, better, smarter, easier. And that created logistics operations in the United States that had never before really been there, other than for domestic manufacturing, having distribution centers. Now you had distribution centers that were all about imports. Walmart, Target, Amazon. Think of the footprint Amazon has, 400 million square feet. And you duplicate that with Walmart, Target, eBay, and now Temu, Sheen, and those new entrants into the market. So, and that's even your old line retailers, Macy's, Target. They all have foreign trade zone operations in large warehouses. So the logistics developers, people who build those warehouses and e-commerce fulfillment centers, they want to know what's happening in the world and what is that doing to affect ports. For the first time in a long time, the LA industrial real estate community is going, uh-oh, where's all the throughput going? The expansion of Houston and the East Coast ports has caused everybody to look up and say, what? All of a sudden, West Coast real estate is not nearly as in high demand as it used to be. And it was always on a trajectory like this all the way through COVID and after COVID. And now there's a little bit of pause. And these are geopolitical issues, the Panama Canal, the Suez Canal, all these things play into where is the container going to come into the United States? And then how do I get it to the final destination? So we study that to the nth degree. Our firm has better stats than the American Association of Port Authorities deliver stats on what ports are doing. We're up to the minute. We know what the railroads are doing. Are they going to go here? Are they going to go there? They're going to build intermodal in this city or not? And then you want to follow where the railroads are going because they're an extension of the ports into the United States. And wherever they open up intermodal, that's just like an extension of the Port of Savannah, extension of the Port of LA Long Beach. So, for example, BNSF is planning a huge intermodal complex in Phoenix. Phoenix doesn't have an intermodal service. They have domestic intermodal, but not international intermodal. And therefore, this is it becoming a huge logistics anchor, if you will. You want to find out where these logistics anchors are. Taiwan Semiconductor is building a huge complex in North Phoenix, a huge anchor for what? For other development of buildings to support TSMC's fabs, which, by the way, they're not just doing 3 fabs, they're going to do 12 fabs in North Phoenix. This is a huge logistics anchor. Our firm finds these anchors, advises our customers where to build, and then they're super successful. A really good, you know Houston well, Pete. A really good example of this is the Carson companies and Watson Land were the two Spanish land grant families in Southern California, right around the port areas, that created these huge, monstrous industrial development firms building around the port of LA Long Beach. Well, they asked me to advise them about every 5 or 6 years. I go to their retreat for their investors and their owners. And where's the next vista? Well, 12 years ago, I was invited to speak there and said, your next vista, guys, you need to look at is Houston. Really? Houston? I said, I got all these stats, all these development issues and initiatives that were going on in Houston. They sent a man to look. They're now building their 15th million square foot building in Houston on 288. That's how much they've invested in Houston. They've got over 15 million square feet. Started at one building on the east side near the port and have grown it up to 15 million. So it's a big part of their portfolio now. And that's the logistics advice we gave them. So that's our logistics side of the house. We also do air cargo development. Rickenbacker Airport was a second airport. It was a closed military base in Columbus, Ohio. They hired us when they had 3 international flights, Pete, 3 international flights a week. We were on a 3-year assignment. When we left, it was 38 flights a week that we developed because they were shipping by truck to Chicago or JFK, and they weren't running the airplanes right there in Columbus. We proved that we could cut 50 cents a kilo off the cost and offer their customers 2 days faster air cargo delivery. Because at the end of the day, air cargo just jumps on a plane and comes to an airport. Until it gets delivered, it's not the end of the road for the air cargo people, right? You got to deliver that to the factory or to the warehouse. And so a lot of trucking is involved in air cargo, and we determined that trucking could get eliminated or reduced and fly it all out of Rickenbacker. And it grew 35 more planes per week into that airport. And think of the secondary and tertiary benefits to the economy that comes from having 35 more 747s land every single week in your community. Huge advantage. So that's the kind of work we do in our logistics trend analysis. And the foreign trade zone, as you understand, speaks for itself. It's all math.
Yeah, definitely. And what have you